Welcome to Lunch with Legacy Leaders, a weekly talk show with local and national thought leaders on issues impacting the Black community. Now introducing our host, Ms. Anne Marie Sorrell.
Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch with Legacy Leaders. I'm your host, Anne Marie Sorrell, President and CEO of the Mosaic Group. Thank you for taking time out of your busy afternoon to join us today. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors for making this broadcast possible. Thank you to Broward Health, AARP, the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County, and the African American Black Alzheimer's Disease Initiative at the John P. Husband Institute for Human Genomics, University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. If you or someone you know is experiencing loss of memory or memory problems, please contact their research team for more information at 877-686-6444. Now, today I am joined by someone who is definitely no stranger to so many across South Florida and beyond. I'm joined by Broward County Commissioner Barbara Sharief, who is also a candidate for Congressional District 20. Welcome, Commissioner Sharief.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. For those who may not know you, which I kind of find it hard to believe who that may be, just a couple of quick highlights because you have done so much in your lifetime. You've served as County Commissioner for Broward County, District 8, which you've been a long time resident of that district. You have also been able to serve as in the form of mayor twice for Broward County. You're an accomplished self-made businesswoman who graduated from North Miami Senior High School and then went on to Miami-Dade College and then got your Bachelor's of Science in Nursing and a Master's in Nursing, as well as an advanced registered nurse practitioner degree from Florida International University. And you have your Doctor of Nursing as well, practiced as of 2017. You just became an author of the book, co-authored with myself and with 13 others, No Glory Without a Story. You run a successful medical business, South Florida Pediatric Home Care Incorporated, and so much more. I can go on and on. So I want you to, first and foremost, from a political standpoint, you've done so much in so many other areas of your life and have been successful. But what about your political journey? I mean, you went from healthcare to politics. Can you share your journey politically with us?
Sure. So my started on, I'm getting an echo. Okay. My journey started a few years ago. I would say as a city commissioner in Miramar, I served for 2 years, one as a city commissioner, the other as vice mayor. Then I came to the county commission in 2010, where I started serving in District 8, which covers Miramar, West Park, Pembroke Park, Hallandale, and Pembroke Pines. And at the time when I came in, I even had Weston and Southwest ranches. So it kind of gave me a familiarity with like small county, medium county, and large county issues. And then I was elected to serve as the mayor of Broward County, first African-American female mayor in its 100-year history. Broke that glass ceiling, was asked to do that twice. And then in my second term as mayor, I was elected statewide by Republicans and Democrats from all 67 counties in the state of Florida to serve as the Florida Association of Counties president. And there is where I gained a lot of traction nationally, because I was the face of Florida for the 4 years that I worked my way up till I got to president. And so when I did that, I ran nationally, worked on the National Association of Counties, was appointed for 9 years to a National Bipartisan Health Steering Committee under President Obama, where I worked to fix the Affordable Care Act, decrease prescription drug costs, and stop blight and food deserts in Black and Brown communities. And so that committee was the Health Steering Committee. I did co-chair and then chair. And I did that for like 9 years, and I enjoyed it. It gave me lots of experience to know what I needed to focus on in healthcare and where my expertise as a doctor of nursing practice and 28 years in the healthcare profession would be utilized in Congress. Fast forwarding from that, I've been sitting on the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Transportation for 13 years. And that's the organization that connects all of Florida. So I'm responsible for regional transportation, not just in the South Florida area, which is Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties, but then how does our highways and byways connect throughout the state? And what I think is significant about that is that Biden put forth a plan in Congress to approve the Build Back Better plan to increase jobs and create stability economically for counties while we improve our aging infrastructure. Transportation, water is going to be critical. I sit on the 16 County Coalition for Water Resource Board, the same board that Congressman Hastings sat on and the same board that Marco Rubio sit on. And that board is challenged with making sure that we protect our water supply, rebuild our infrastructure, and make sure that the water flow moves from the north down to the south, from the Gulf down to the east of and the west in the coastlines, so that we can improve water quality. Why that's significant for District 20 is because Riviera, Royal Palm, South Bay, Pahokee, and Belle Glade, Loxahatchee Point, and Mangonia Park have all had water issues because of the stagnation. And so my job on that committee is to rebuild the infrastructure, like with the Everglades, the Herbert Hoover Dike, which we are finishing right now, the C51 and C44 reservoirs to make rainwater storage so that we can increase the lake levels and cause the water to move down properly so that we will stop some of that pollution and algae bloom problems. And so why that's significant for Congress is because I have an opportunity to bring great water quality to some areas that are highly Black and brown, but also income challenged, and in cities that are struggling to get funding through their tax base to fix those things. And so those are just a few of the areas that I think that my experience is so relevant right now today.
Well, thank you for that. So you kind of touched a little bit on some of the different issues, which we're going to dive into those a little bit more. But I want to kind of understand from a personal standpoint. I think, when oftentimes, and as a elected official myself, but as working with elected officials or candidates for many years, oftentimes people don't get to understand or see their human side. So I want to see your human side. Not saying you didn't just show your human side. It's all great. But what's your why? What's your personal why on this move right now?
So as mayor, I ran, as mayor, I was charged with helping people who were victims of the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport shooting, as well as the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting occurred at the tail end of my mayorship when I changed over and became mayor. And one of the things that I noticed was that, I experienced gun violence on a personal level when I was 14. A 15-year-old came up to my father in front of my 19-year-old sister while they were out on the street working. And he shot my father in the chest while he was trying to rob him. And he killed my father, widowed my mom with 8 kids, and thus became the struggle in my life to get to where I am. And in that struggle, in that moment, I couldn't see like how this was going to affect me going down the line and how this would help other people. And when the Fort Lauderdale tragedy happened, I was able to relate on a level that no one else could to the fact that 5 families lost their loved ones needlessly to gun violence. And there was a mental health component to it. There was signs of domestic violence. And the same with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. And I started working with the Obama administration. The president called, and I was determined to work with the White House to change laws, to change gun laws. Why? We need to screen people and make sure that there are no domestic violence issues, that there are no mental health issues before they're able to buy a weapon. We need to stop selling weapons at gun shows without proper background screenings. We need to ban high-capacity magazines and semi-automatic weapons because those are killing machines, not protection for anyone. And so I started working with him to try to change the TSA rules, and the NRA blocked us. And it was just because I didn't have a big enough voice. I wasn't in Congress. I was just a mayor who had experienced a mass gun violence. And this is something that's becoming so commonplace in America that people just turn on the TVs and think that that's okay here. What I proposed is that gun manufacturers of ammunition and these types of weapons be held accountable when mass shootings occur. And we sue them just like we sued in the opioid industry. I'm the head for Broward County's opioid lawsuit task force, and we're getting ready to bring down millions of dollars to Broward with that lawsuit. We need to sue gun manufacturers and those who create ammunition for these weapons when mass shootings occur, so that we hold them more accountable to being more responsible and helping us create more responsible gun ownership, just like we did in the opioid industry. I'm going to promote that. I'm going to push that in Congress. And that's what makes this personal to me. It makes it very personal to me. The other thing that became very personal to me, in my community, people struggle all the time. Yet people who are in elected office support things like red light cameras. Do you know that the only people that pay red light camera tickets are those who are income challenged, the people who are working at Burger King, Target, Wendy's, the gas stations, the service industry, hospitality industry, people with lower paying jobs pay red light camera tickets because they don't want to lose a day's worth of work, but yet that ticket takes up almost a week's worth of their pay. That is a shame. It is considered a regressive tax. And on the county commission, I fought the company ATS from patching into our infrastructure and putting red light cameras on every corner in Broward County. That's why it stopped, because they couldn't use Broward County's infrastructure to patch in. And this is just one example of how a congressperson, how a sitting elected official can protect the interests of a community that's so financially challenged. They don't need another problem. They don't need somebody taxing them on infrastructure that they already pay taxes on. And these are things that I think are lost in our community. In terms of healthcare access, what's personal to me is when, as a doctor of nursing practice, I'm prescribing medicine for a senior, and they're telling me that their copay is so much that they can't afford to buy food. They have to choose between buying food or paying for that medication. How can you, as a practitioner, look at somebody and say, I gotta prescribe this for you, and I know this is gonna strap you financially? I sit down and I spend hours trying to fill out exception forms and working with the pharmacies to find drugs that they can afford. And it shouldn't be that way. When you've worked all your life and you qualify for Medicare and you qualify for Social Security, we should take care of our responsibility in America. That's what I'm bringing to Congress. It's personal for me because I live this every day with people. And it's a challenge out there. And for those people who don't have my background and experience, that's what
Awesome. So you talked about some of the federal issues, but I want to hear some of the other ones. You touched on infrastructure. You touched on the environment and water, particularly specific for South Florida and district, which there's definitely some opposing issues when it comes to the water, especially when it comes to the Herbert Hoover Dike. And I think one of the trends that Congressman Mass was pushing is to lower the lake levels and keep them at a certain level. What's your stance on that?
So first of all, we need to abide by science. Science is the key to making the water levels where they need to be and keeping the flow where it needs to be. I am not for lowering the water levels. We lowered them in Lake Okeechobee. They have not rebounded since. There's so much muck in the bottom of that lake that it prohibits the natural flow of water throughout that area and throughout the Everglades. So I am opposed to lowering any lake levels. What I want to do is to create a balance, and that is by providing proper storage, water storage for rain, and keeping those reservoirs up to par so that we can go ahead and move the flow. When we need to open up the pumps, open up the flow stations and allow water to run into the lake and move down the way that it needs to move down. So I'm all about the science. We have a phenomenal doctor, Dr. Gerardo, who works with me on this, and she tells me exactly what the science is showing. Climate change is a huge factor here in Florida. We are a peninsula surrounded by all sides with water, and you can't start decreasing the flow until you understand the lake levels, until you understand the flow. And our flow has not kept pace with the growth of our population. We continue to build around these communities that have this water problem, water storage, watershed problem, water flow problems. And that's going to continue to be an issue because our infrastructure is aging. So what I would suggest to Congressman Mast is that we fix our infrastructure. We provide more rain reservoir storage. We complete the 68 projects that the 16 county coalition that I sit on have presented. And then we talk about what happens if we get too much water. But we haven't had a problem with too much water. Our problem has been too little water, which creates a lack of flow.
So let me ask you, speaking of, let's talk about the projects and infrastructure from an economic standpoint, because I know that the reservoir, for example, was about a 1.6 billion, if I'm not mistaken, project. Mm-hmm. And what I did not hear and still have not heard was the economic impact for not just the local workforce, for jobs and training, even leading into that before it got started, as well as business participation for minority and Black-owned businesses. Where do we stand when it comes to pushing? Where do you stand when it comes to pushing for Black folks getting a fair share of that work and being prepared for those types of projects? They're not your typical, build a police station, fire station. It definitely takes some additional types of services and skills, but it's not that we don't have the businesses that can do some level of that work. When you talk about a reservoir, there's definitely concrete, there's definitely transportation, there's definitely moving of dirt and everything else, as well as landscaping, et cetera. So where are we in that process economically, and where do you stand with that?
So for example, when we started the surtax program for transportation, we put a 30% participation on that project. So 30% of the business has to go to small and minority businesses to complete those transportation projects. At the federal and the state level, they don't have that same guideline. So what I would advocate for is a 30% participation level, at least on these projects. Secondly, we know that these types of projects bring higher paying jobs and economic security to levels where they're being completed. We have a lot of people in those areas that are unemployed and that need these jobs. And so these companies are responsible for training in those areas and also promoting small business. And what that is that looks like is promoting women and minority owned businesses in construction and in water engineering projects. There's a lot that can be done, from community consulting work to the actual concrete, to the actual dirt driving, to the actual physical installation of pumps and machinery, and even monitoring services, monitoring the lake levels, making sure that the fish and wildlife are safe in those areas. I mean, there's a lot that goes into when you create a water project and moving it down, checking the bacteria levels and checking the flow. And so I think that there is a area for, and it's a lot of opportunity for small and minority businesses here, but we just have to push that on a congressional level and on a state level. And I'm committed to that.
Absolutely, because I don't think no one has pushed that, as far as I know, on a congressional level for our communities when it comes to true economic development, not just jobs, which clearly around the lake there's high unemployment rates. So there's definitely has not been training enough. There's not been enough jobs, at least promoted and marketed. I'm sure somebody's doing the work, but where are they coming from? Right. And when it comes to the contractual side of it, somebody's getting the contracts, but it's definitely not the people around the lake. And it's definitely not the people in Broward and Palm Beach counties that look like you and I. So it would be great to have a champion on a federal level to ensure that those types of projects have proper representation and participation.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about some of the other hot button issues on a federal level. Criminal justice reform.
Yes. You ready?
I'm ready.
And let me say this. First of all, we've seen a tremendous change in how people look at criminal justice reform due to the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the tragedies of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. So I just want to say that we talk about the civil rights and we talk about the changes that occurred, but these were two icons of people that just moved America during a time of racism under Donald Trump, and during a time where people thought it was okay to take Black lives. And now we're coming into this phase where people have now started to take notice, and people want justice to be exacted equally from police officers to community. And when we saw that these two cases came out and that justice seemed to be enacted fairly, that created a dialogue. And this dialogue became this: how much force can you use and be safe? And when do you need to exact that force? And why isn't there a national standard for use of force throughout all policing communities? See, we have the community in the little city in Texas that does it one way. We have the big cities in Broward and Dade that do it one way. We have communities from small, medium to large size that they're all policing, but they all have these ways about policing where excessive use of force is killing people. We need to standardize our policy on use of force. We need to educate people in every community, police officers, on what cultural sensitivity really is. Because these programs that some of them have, that's just a day worth of, okay, whatever, I know. We need to really educate them on what it's like for a Black man and a Black woman to interact with law enforcement in a Black community where they know that historically people have been killed on traffic stops. And what that's going to look like is that there has to be a standardized police policy and screening for officers who may have preconceived biases. And I don't mean just accepting people because their father or their auntie or their cousin or their brother was a police officer before and they got a law enforcement family. No, we need to analyze as to whether or not they're mentally capable of exacting and for being a law enforcement officer and treating people with respect and dignity as they're supposed to be treated, because that's a reciprocal thing. The other thing that I think needs to happen, we need to allow for civil citation and diversionary court programs to be standard. We need to mandate use of those programs because it costs us in Broward County $3,300 a month to keep somebody locked up for a small marijuana charge or a small violation, when we could just put them in a diversionary program for $184 a month and keep them out of jail and stop the rap sheets from going so people have a second chance after they had a law enforcement contact. And then the last thing that I'm going to say is that mental health and crisis calls, they should not be answered with guns and tasers. We should have a standard policy nationally to where when you get a call that you know that there's a mental health component, that every police department and police agency out there knows that they have to have a mental health crisis team on standby with medical professionals in there to help with that call. And that would save a lot of lives because, law enforcement officers, listen, they have failed at responding to mental health calls. We see people getting tasered who have severe emotional difficulties and handicaps and challenges. We see people who are on drugs that die because they've been tased so many times because they can't be properly restrained and they're not getting the proper treatment. We see that on a national scale. It's not just local. And so as a congressperson, those are the efforts that I'm committed to back in and champion, and because for District 20, because I think that that's much needed.
So you talked about marijuana charges. Where do you stand on federal legalization, descheduling, decriminalization, any of those factors on cannabis?
So I said in my previous platform, we need to legalize marijuana. We need to retroactively release people from jail that have these petty marijuana charges for small possession and personal use charges. And we need to standardize the policy on that throughout the United States. And that if we legalize it throughout the United States, then the people who do sell marijuana for medical use or for personal use, they can go to banks, they can go to institutions legally and have their business recognized as a legal business, because it is. And if you want to cut down on some of what you call illegal activity, just make marijuana legal, because a high percentage of the people that are incarcerated are there because of small, very minor marijuana possession charges. So yes, we need to legalize marijuana. But I go
But does that exclude those who may have been in prison for selling and trafficking marijuana as well? Does that exclude or include them?
I think that we need to revisit the level of sentencing that those people have. And for example, we know that people with money have less sentences for the same thing because they can afford legal representation on a better scale. And so for me, I think if you're going to go back and look at legalization, I think you also should look at the people who are trafficking it and try to figure out if we are a system that's built on reform and forgiveness and second chances, then let's start giving people a second chance. Let's start clearing out our prisons of people that are not violent and that don't belong there. And that's one approach to doing it. I think you should go back and look at those sentences, allow them to have an appeal, allow them to, maybe come out for time served and move on with their lives and try to become a productive member of society. It has to start somewhere.
No, I agree. And I think there's definitely a gray area, especially if you don't standardize it, when it comes to the selling and trafficking side of it, because people are making millions and billions now, even though it's not legal everywhere. So I think that whoever the congressional leader will be, not only for this district, but across the board, and senators, that it has to be a standard that allows someone who used to sell or traffic, or whatever the terminology is, to also be freed as well, and come out and rehabbed and put into the legal side of selling. Just my 2 cents. What about one of the biggest, and it's increasing and is impacting poor communities, but definitely Black communities and brown communities, the housing crisis in America right now, especially with real estate that has literally doubled and tripled in some places. Rents have increased by 50+% in a lot of places. But particularly in Broward and Palm Beach County has become extremely expensive to live. So when we talk about a nationwide housing crisis, what's your stand on that?
So the reason why we have a nationwide housing crisis is because for too long, people have not even been making a living wage to be able to afford to live. When we look at the Alice report that comes out and it analyzes the price of housing throughout the state of Florida, you need an average of about $51,000 a year to live as a family of 2 or 4, and be able to save for the American dream, which is home ownership, right? And so in District 20, we have only 55% home ownership, which means that 45% of the people that live in District 20 don't make enough to even to pay their bills and to have home ownership. So they're forced into a renting situation. What I propose in Congress is that we bring back the Obama Making Homes Affordable program. And under that program, I was successfully able to save over 3,000 houses throughout Broward County with that. And what it did is it allowed for people to get out from under balloon mortgages and high interest rate mortgages, which were causing foreclosure increases. And then the second part of that program was a first-time homebuyers program, where we helped with down payment assistance and closing costs for first-time homebuyers. But what that program was lacking and what we need right now because of COVID and because of the recession is we need a second-time homebuyers program. So what I'm advocating for is an opportunity for people who are owning a home for the second time, who may have experienced a home loss because of COVID or financial instability, job loss, the recession, to be able to apply for this program after showing that they have sufficient income to support that and to get a house, and to allow for first time the same benefits as a first time home buyer program, which is down payment assistance and closing cost assistance, so that they can get back into a home. And I think that that's one way that we can increase home ownership throughout this district. My second thing that I want to do in terms of affordable housing is I want to seek development to stop the blight in certain areas in my district, and to allow that to be done and create better living conditions for those areas without gentrifying those areas. And how I plan to do that is by changing how HUD vouchers are able to be used. You see, right now, HUD vouchers are restricted based on income and based on the number of children, the mom, the dad, whatever, the family. And it goes basically based on your income. And what I want to do is allow for an extension to be made that HUD vouchers can be used based on a geographic need. And that means that in an area where the cost of living is higher, that HUD voucher can be increased and utilized on new construction, new properties to hold your space in a new construction, so a building, so that when they're making a 30 affordable home building and you want to apply for that and you're living in a condition where you don't think it's good for you, you can go ahead and utilize your voucher and hold your place, just like you could hold your place when you're buying into one of these new housing developments. And so based on a geographic need, a HUD voucher can be utilized differently. I think we have to allow some flexibility in that program if we are going to allow that program to be used the way that it's supposed to be used, to help working class families get further along and be able to have some savings and be able to have some flexibility. Nobody wants to live in the middle of a blighted community forever. Nobody wants to be challenged to be able to say, well, my kids have to go to a school that I don't want them to go to because I can't afford to move out of that neighborhood. You want to move out of that neighborhood? We want to improve that neighborhood. We want to make it where that neighborhood A looks just like all the rest, B, C, D, all the way down to Z. Because that's the problem. We have this inequality in terms of where people live, how much their houses are worth, how much they can afford. And I just feel like in order to stabilize things and right that wrong, we're going to have to do something with the HUD voucher program, and we're going to have to stop blight, rebuild communities without gentrification, and allow for people to get home ownership with support through the federal programs.
Thank you. And of course, I could not, in that set of questions, without touching on immigration, considering where we live, and particularly in Broward and Palm Beach County, where there's a very vast number of immigrants from varying places throughout the Caribbean, particularly immigrants of the African diaspora. So do you have any stance on immigration, dreamers, et cetera?
So my stance on this is this. I've been in South Florida my entire life, and I was in kindergarten when the first Haitian immigrants and Cuban immigrants were coming over here. And the Haitian community has particularly been at a disadvantage, and the Jamaican community at a disadvantage. You see, the Cubans got wet foot, dry foot, and they were allowed to come here and have a free and clear pathway to citizenship. Haiti is in worse repair than Cuba has ever been. Haiti has been destroyed by earthquakes, natural disasters, tornadoes, bad hurricanes, and they've had water issues, they've had infrastructure breaches, and even now with this last earthquake, Haiti is still suffering because their hospitals were damaged, their water supply was damaged in many areas, and yet we see Haitian immigrants always being turned away and pushed back. We see people from Jamaica having difficulty with getting their paperwork and getting their citizenship. These, first of all, I cannot fathom a world where I have seen people come from these countries looking for a better opportunity and they not take advantage of it. We see that when a Jamaican immigrant and a Haitian immigrant gets the opportunity to come here to America, we see them thriving and succeeding and taking advantage of those opportunities. Why turn people away that can be such productive members of our society? Why? And the only thing I can think of is because of skin color, because that's the only thing that's different. Haiti, Jamaica, the people from the Caribbean that's seeking help here need to be given a clear pathway to citizenship. And how do we do that? So one of the things that we have to do is we have to have clear procedures for what it is that you need to do if you're coming from another country or community and you're wanting to seek a pathway to citizenship. We need to expedite those applications. People don't need to be waiting for 6 years to be able to get a green card or a passport or something to come here to America. They don't need to have to go marry somebody to get citizenship here. Why can't I, as a woman from Jamaica or Haiti, be able to apply if I feel like I have a better opportunity in America to be able to apply independently of a man or whoever? I don't need to get married to come here. I just think that we have such antiquated rules, and we have rules that are different for each person in each community. I want to see the Black community. I want to see that Black immigration community, immigrant community thrive here. And I want them to be able to come here legally and not have to hide and not have to work low-paying jobs. I want them to come here legally, be able to have a social security card, a driver's license, and their paperwork in order so that they can do what they need to do. And that's what I'm supporting. I mean, this has been going on since the 70s. I'm 50 years old. It's time for this to change.
Absolutely. So there are 11 candidates, Democratic candidates, in this race, many of which you know, friends with, their colleagues, allies in some cases. And the vote is going to be split tremendously. Do you believe that you all could have possibly come together, created any type of strategy on maybe who should run? Because those who are elected, for example, we know that your term is ending, but there are others whose terms were not ending, whether it's in state, county, whatever respective seats. But now they're going to be vacating those seats. Do you think that it could have been a better strategy, number one? And is this a good move in the end for our community as a whole?
So let me just say this district has been gerrymandered to the point where every Black elected official on a statewide level, whether it be in county, whether it be in state representative or a state senator, this district is a Black district, and it's probably one of the only Black districts that run throughout Broward and Palm Beach counties, right? And so people have pushed us into this district on purpose because they knew that these were the Black communities. I think that term limits, one, would be a good idea for Congress. Then that way there will be a succession plan. There will be people that are vying for the seats prior to somebody, unfortunately, passing away. Secondly, I think that our Democratic Party has to become more involved when there are Democratic seats up in Black areas. at screening candidates and trying to support candidates. Right now, the Democratic Party does not get involved in primaries when there's multiple Democratic candidates. But I think if there was that type of screening procedure, yes, you could have people come together and the Democratic Party can say, well, this is the candidate we think we should back because we think this person has the best chance of winning and we think this person supports more democratic values and can add value in Congress, right? But we don't have that. And so while that question sounds great, people are thinking about their political future. People are thinking about, is this my opportunity to get in? Okay. These seats never come open because of the fact that there are no term limits. It comes up every 2 years. People go in the ballot booth and just keep checking the box because they know the name. People that are in Congress kind of have the bully pulpit because they can raise a large amount of monies and they can keep change from occurring in these seats. What we see right now on a congressional and a Senate level is that we have stagnation because of this. We have stagnation because people have dug their heels in and they're refusing to negotiate with the other side. Bipartisanship and compromise seem to be dirty words right now. And these are things that when you're going into Congress and you're going into a position like this, that you have to just, you have to take into consideration. You're going to get nothing done if you go in there and you're not able to compromise. And so out of these people that are in this race, you got people that I call the vote takers. Those are people that are in the race. They don't have a chance of winning, but they're going to take votes. That's why the vote's going to split down. You have the fact that the what we're dealing with, which is a off-cycle election. Nobody was up for Congress this year. It was up last year. So now people didn't even know that there was a seat. So you're dealing with people not even being aware of an election. So it's going to be a low voter turnout. There's too many candidates. There are people in this race, 6 people that they're going to just take votes, okay? And then you have the other elected officials that are going to split votes, but that feel like this is their time and their opportunity. Some of them, I feel like when they just got elected, all of them for 2020, they should not have run. And that we would have been able to have a challenge in this race, yes, but then those seats would have been filled and we wouldn't have people disenfranchised for the legislative session coming up in January 11th, because the governor did that on purpose. See, the Republicans wanted to keep this seat vacant until the 11th because they wanted to keep the Democratic majority for President Biden's first year in office slim as possible. And with the dissenters on the Democratic side, we could possibly have a Congress and a Senate where we get nothing done on a Democratic president's first year in office and possibly stall him out his second year. It is critical that we fill this seat. And on January 11th, when that election is held, whoever is the winner, which I hope it's me, I think it's going to be me, whoever gets this is going to have to start working day one, pushing that button and moving and being a voting member of Congress. And that person has to have some understanding and knowledge of what's going on in Congress. And I think that some people that are in this race, they just don't have the experience, and their ideal and their principles are just too far out for us to get anything done. And on the other hand, I know why people have jumped into this race. I just feel like some of these people that are in here now that were on the ballot for 2020 should have really thought long and hard about this, because we all knew the same thing, was that Congressman Hastings wasn't doing well. And we knew that there was a high possibility that he probably wasn't going to be able to continue to serve. I would have hoped that the congressman kept his life and that he was able to live and fight for a longer time through what he was going through. But, we all know what happens when you have that stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And that's a severe illness. It takes its toll. And he had been a fighter for over 2 years. God bless him. And may he rest in peace. And this election is going to come down to probably an 18% vote margin. That's what.
Thank you. So my last 2 questions quickly, so I know you have to go as well. Congressman Hastings served approximately 28 years in Congress. Again, rest his soul. Definitely was a fighter. The next Congressperson will definitely have to be a tremendous fighter. So my question is 2-part on this one. One, what would you do differently than Congressman Hastings? And two, if you're elected and if there are no term limits, would you do the same thing? Or would you have a succession plan and mentor and train others to eventually take the post and not stay there for decades?
So yeah, I think that Congressman did what he felt like he wanted to do and what he felt like he needed to do. For me, I feel term limits is important. I think that over the coming legislative sessions that we are going to see more introduction of bills that do call for term limits. What I think would be a great term, I think that just like you have on the Senate side, you have your 12-year terms, 2 6-year terms. I think that 12 years here would be just as good. I'm 50 years old. I should hope that I can accomplish something in a 12-year period that's meaningful, just like I have on the county commission, that will move this district forward, but also bring people behind me that's going to continue that forward momentum and galvanize this party to create more democracy for the country. And so I would support term limits. I think 6 2-year terms, a total of 12 years is good. I don't think you need more than that. And then move on to the next thing, and allow for change to naturally occur. Allow for new ideas to come up, and then that way we can find our way back to bipartisanship and compromise.
Awesome. Now, if you are not elected, will you support the winner? And what will you do next? And then share your closing thoughts.
So, as far as me not being elected, if I was not elected, of course I would support whoever the Democratic candidate is. I would have to tell you that I have to stand by on. We have there's a huge spread in this race in terms of opinion. I am in no way a progressive, so I'm going to put that out there. I am not blocking Biden's plans. I am not doing crazy stuff. And so I should hope that it's somebody that I can agree with on the principles, my principles as well, and somebody that I can work with. That being said, I will be elected on November the 2nd. And I'm going with that because that's my God. And I'm putting that in the universe because I don't do negativity. The second thing that I'm going to say is that the reason why I feel like I'm the best candidate for this position, one, look, I'm not doing this for any type of money or personal gain. I got enough of that. I got 6 college degrees. I own a multi-million-dollar company. I employ over 200 professionals throughout Broward and Dade County. I've been in business for myself 20 years. That pays my bills. I do not need to do this for the money, but this is my give back. This is my way of saving my community. My father started a food program in our masjid, which is the Muslim form of church. And I spent my Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays carrying groceries to communities that were in need and giving back. And my voice on the county commission has been able to advocate for a district that it has such diverse financial needs and such a diverse population. I'm going to take that experience, my business background, my 28 years in healthcare, my 13 years in elected office. I'm going to bring all of that to the table, and I'm going to represent people without having to be beholden to anybody. Because in the county, I did the same thing. I'm going to do that up at the congressional level. But I think that most of all, when you look at me, you're talking about somebody who worked 3 jobs to put themselves through nursing school, somebody who didn't have money for food in nursing school. I fought through that and I made a way. And now I own a business that's very successful. And I've got 2 girls that I've put through college, coming out, going into medical school. And I got my 14-year-old that's going to be an engineer. She thinks she's running the whole county online, okay, through public school. And so I think I've built into this community an example, somebody who can leave a legacy, somebody who can fight and have a commitment to continue on. What Congressman Hastings did was his plan. What Barbara Sharief is going to do as only the fourth nurse, a business owner and healthcare professional in Congress, it's you got to wait to see it. And so I am taking that in my positivity. I'm going to Congress. I'm going to fight for District 20, and I'm going to leave my own legacy in Broward and Palm Beach counties. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharief. This has been an amazing conversation. I certainly wish you all the best. And for those who do not know when the election is, it is November 2nd in Palm Beach and Broward County. So I think the deadline to register to vote has passed, right?
It was October the 4th to register. But your absentee ballots, you can still keep requesting. Absentee ballots dropped 3 weeks ago, and you can still request. Early voting is October the 23rd through October the 31st, and election day is November the 2nd. Now, here's the key, Anne-Marie. November the 2nd is the election. November the 7th, I'm going to be 50 years old. So you have to give me a birthday gift, and that is going in the ballot booth and checking that box.
See, and those are her closing thoughts. Mic drop. Well, thank you so much again. Stay with me for a moment. Let me just do a couple of quick announcements. I want to once again thank everyone for tuning in, and thank you to our sponsors for making this broadcast possible: Broward Health, AARP, the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County, and the African American Black Alzheimer's Disease Initiative at the John P. Hussman Institute for Human Genomics, University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. Please be sure to check out MIA Media Group for our latest issue, as well as all of our shows where we cover everything from art and culture to food in South Florida to money management, as well as highlighting Black-owned businesses in South Florida. So please check out the lineup. We have something for everyone every day of the week, Monday through Sunday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So please check us out at miamediagrp.com, and be sure to share this video because, of course, as always, there's much important information that people in the community need to know about. So be informed, be engaged, share, and make sure you save the date. And we'll see you back here next Thursday at noon. Thank you again, Dr. Sharief, and have a good afternoon.
You too.